Michael Patrick Shields is on the air.
Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant, if cold, Monday to you. You can expect snow and freezing drizzle later today if it wasn't bad enough to wake up with popsicle toes this morning. Your afternoon commute will be tough. Your morning commute this morning will be cold. It's 4 degrees across from our Gillespie Group storefront studio here in the state capitol. Although my readout this morning on my Saturn View was 10 degrees, but I kept it in the garage, so it wasn't too bad. But it is cold, and the wind chill could drop as low as 7 below. Winds could reach 22 miles per hour. More snowfall possible on Tuesday, but we're getting through winter here. It's the 24th of January. Groundhog's Day is coming soon, and we're just hitting these little milestones in the winter. You know, first you have the auto show in Detroit, and then you have the auto show in Grand Rapids, and you have Groundhog's Day, and you have Valentine's Day, and Super Bowl's coming up. And so before you know it, it'll be St. Patrick's Day, and the weather's always nice on St. Patrick's Day. Anyway, that's what's going on. Gary Austin, if you weren't in Grand Rapids the other night, were you at the Tequila nightclub? Because there was a real ruckus that went on there. Apparently,
well, I tell you, it was quite a bit of commotion.
Late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, Tequila nightclub in the Grand Rapids area, and there was what we would call a real melee.
Yeah, apparently a bunch of people got into a fight. We don't know exactly why, but police are questioning quite a few. At last word, no word of any arrests yet, but police still have a lot of investigating to do on that, as officers are doing in Detroit. How about that terrible shooting? This happened over the weekend. Somebody randomly apparently walked into a police station and started firing away, and 4 officers were hit with bullets. And incredibly now, all these guys are going to be okay. 4 of them, they're in the hospital, and their injuries apparently are not serious anymore. But they're going to be okay, according to Chief Godbey. He tells us that they're out of the woods as far as anything serious. The gunman was shot and killed. Why he did it, who knows? Police are investigating that, too.
Well, more bad publicity for Detroit. Only one of the injured officers is in critical condition, apparently, though, but it's the stuff of nightmares. Yep. President Obama, tomorrow night, is the State of the Union address, so Rick Snyder got the best of him by having the State of the State first. State of the Union is tomorrow, and the President, of course, will have that very... it's a ceremony almost, isn't it, where he addresses a joint session of Congress. He talks about his plans and gives the so-called state of our union, and they usually say the state of our union is strong, and then everybody stands up and cheers. And sometimes if you count the applause time in between the speech time, the applause time is longer than the talking because people are compelled to stand and applaud the president. And then sometimes you get the cameras showing the Republicans who maybe have a grimace on their face or don't applaud. But for the most part, he gets a bipartisan sort of at least show of support when he comes into the room in the first place, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's true. And I think based on all that's happened here and, the shooting in Tucson and all that, I think there's this camaraderie sort of feeling amongst Republicans and Democrats now. Even some are going to be intermingled. This doesn't happen often where you'll see a Republican and a Democrat sitting right next to one another. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of those in Congress are opting to do that this time. Again, a sign of solidarity. But there are some who say, no, well, we want to stick with tradition. You over there and us over here. So
we have a traditional Super Bowl, huh? The Steelers and the Packers, just like the good old days, right? Super Bowl 45. They are going to play in 2 weeks, so we get a little bit of a break here and lots of time to ramp up to Dallas where the game will be held. Packers, it's their 5th Super Bowl and their first since 1998. Steelers are going to play in their 8th Super Bowl, and they're looking for their 7th NFL championship, and they've really been rich with the Super Bowls lately. Like to talk about the New England Patriots a lot, but the Steelers have been really strong, and you'll remember that they won the Super Bowl that was held in Detroit about 5 years ago, I guess it was.
Yeah, well, big turnout for that, no doubt, and also big turnout for the auto show, and this is certainly encouraging news. Final stats are not in yet, but all indications are, when compared to over the past several years, attendance at this year's show was up. And these guys gauge this sort of thing. When numbers are up at the auto show, that somehow translates, the experts tell us, into more folks eventually buying something new in the months after the show ends. So let's hope that's the case.
We'll stay tuned.
Yes.
I don't know how to take this. I guess it's bad news. Apparently, the number of newborns in
Yeah.
2009 in Michigan, 117,000. That's the lowest since the end of the Second World War.
I don't know what to make of that. Some may say, families are deciding to do that because of the economy being what it is. Others may say, well, you take into fact that there are fewer people living in Michigan because so many have left the state. That translates into fewer babies, fewer people to have them. So on the flip side, I don't know how you really break that down with so many people. I mean, you have to almost ask each couple individually why they choose to have a baby or why they don't choose to have kids or start a family or what have you. But you've got to figure when you break it all down, Michael. Patrick agreed the economy likely has something to do with it.
The next big race is going to be the race to see if incumbent Democratic Senator Debbie Stabenow can hold her seat, or will she lose it to a Republican? And there's speculation now about what Republican will run against her. And Saul Anuzis, who just lost his bid to become the National Republican Party chair, is making noise about running for the U.S. Senate. Did you hear that?
Yep. This is another case in point where before Debbie Stabenow never really had any serious opposition to that seat. But with spending in Washington, and in particular the health care reform plan, and Republicans are looking at what happened in the last election, and they did so well, targeting Democrats who supported the health care reform plan. Just ask Tim Walberg. I think and that's just one case here in Michigan, but this happened, of course, all over the country. And I think because of that vote and because of Senator Stabenow's position on health care reform and some of the spending plans, some Republicans say, according to polling data, that makes her vulnerable. So, no surprise, Saul Anuzis is at least considering this. He's not made a decision one way or another, but reports indicate he's taking a good hard look at it.
Some of the other names in the hopper: former Governor John Engler, who has said that he's not running, but his name still comes up. Former Congressman Pete Hoekstra, who lost the primary bid to be governor, and Congressman Mike Rogers are some of those people. Newsweek magazine has a list of dying cities.
Yeah, I saw that.
And 3 Michigan cities are on the list. They looked at cities with populations of more than 100,000 that lost people in the census. And you ready? Well, 7th is Detroit, in 7th place on that list. Grand Rapids, Flint is 9th, and Grand Rapids 10th. I wouldn't consider Grand Rapids a dying city, would you?
Yeah, I don't know. I just wonder we just see the reports statewide about how so many people are leaving Michigan. You got to figure some states are going to be hit harder than others. And I wonder, we talked earlier about fewer babies being born. Perhaps there could be a correlation there.
New Orleans was the top dying city. Obviously, they lost a lot of people because of the hurricane. And South Bend, Indiana, also a dying city. Sparky Anderson's number 11 will be retired by the Detroit Tigers. They're on their winter caravan this week, going around the state making publicity. And they made a lot of news with that no one will ever wear number 11 for the Tigers. And speaking of Flint, General Motors is going to increase truck production at the Flint assembly plant, adding a 3rd shift. That means 650 people will be going to work there. And Ford Motor Company is expected to report this week an $8 billion profit. It's a major turnaround. They lost $30 billion between 2006 and 2008, but they will have a profit for 2010 at the Ford Motor Company.
Good to see that. It is the 38th anniversary of a very historic decision, which has really stood the test of time, the Roe versus Wade decision. And pro-choice and anti-abortion groups, they're going to rally today in Washington, D.C. to mark that event. And groups including the National Organization for Women and Choice USA will gather at the Supreme Court to celebrate that decision from 1973 from the Supreme Court that led to the legalization of abortion. The annual anti-abortion event, March for Life, is also set to do their thing near the Supreme Court today as well.
All right, the Dow mixed on Friday with the S&P finishing higher. Strong report by General Electric pushed the markets higher with optimism that it's a sign of solid earnings going forward. The Dow was up 49 points. The S&P climbed 3, but the NASDAQ fell 15. And No Strings Attached was the number 1 film at the box office this week. It's been a very, very good year for Natalie Portman.
Yes, and one last note here, and who doesn't know, and who maybe didn't exercise, probably very few, with Jack LaLanne while watching TV way back when, or at least maybe thinking about doing what he was able to do. And this guy we just talk about, he just kept going on and on. He passed away over the weekend, Jack LaLanne, A Very Long and Rich Life. And he was questioned by an ABC News reporter, Michael Patrick, during an interview a few years ago. And, he led a life, exercise and eat right and all that. And he was talking about it long before it was in fashion to really do that sort of thing like it is today. And he was questioned by this reporter. He said, "So what do you think they'll say about you when you're gone?" And he said, "Hey, that guy was right." How about that? Jack LaLanne, A Long, Rich Life.
18 minutes after the hour, he's Gary Austin. I'm Michael Patrick Shields, back with the sports. And we're going to Disney World, too. Stay tuned. Yeah, you might have popsicle toes this morning here in the state of Michigan because it's 4 degrees. And later on today, the wind chill is going to get us down to 10 below across the state as we're fighting to make our way through this winter. But January is almost in the rearview mirror, and that helps. And Dave Herbst, a guy who spent a lot of time working here in Michigan and now works in the Sunshine State, is on the other end of our line. He is with the Walt Disney World Resort, the print managing editor for the parks and resorts. Welcome back to Michigan virtually, Dave Herbst.
You're giving me a chill, Michael.
Sorry about that, but you know what? What happens is, though, we have in Michigan, as John McMurray always used to say, the Upper Peninsula, the Lower Peninsula, and the Southern Peninsula.
Oh, yeah.
That being
it's certainly this time of year. Lots of so-called snowbirds down here in the great Sunshine State.
Yeah, they're all over the place. And if they're not coming for the entire winter, they're coming for, President's Weekend and spring break and Easter, because we just shoot straight down I-75 or hop on Delta or any of the other airlines and zing on into Florida there. And one of the places that everybody talks about going, and in a couple weeks there'll be a Super Bowl game between the Steelers and the Packers, a traditional game. And very often when the winning player comes off the field, they say, "Where are you going?" And he'll say, "I'm going to Disney World," just like a lot of the rest of us.
Absolutely, and we're certainly planning on that happening again this year. Somebody hopefully coming to the park on the 7th of January.
You worked in Pittsburgh, didn't you?
I did.
And they're here. Look at the Steelers. I mean, there's a lot of talk about the New England Patriots and how dominant they are, but look at the Steelers now, going back to the Super Bowl again. I think it's tying a record for Super Bowl appearances. But man alive, this is a team of that even when you throw in a little strife, like they lost a player, they had what's his name, Roethlisberger, sit out 4 games or 6 games or whatever it was, and all they do is win.
Well, they certainly got they have a good system going there, and as New England does as well. The staggering thing for me, statistically, in that they mentioned in that game last night, was it was the 15th time that they had been to the AFC Championship game. Yeah. I did not realize that. That's a lot of AFC Championship games.
Yeah, it's something else. Now, it was great seeing you, by the way. I was lucky enough to be included in an opportunity to be on the christening cruise of the Disney Dream, the newest cruise ship at the Walt Disney World Resort in Florida. And to say that was a momentous occasion is to understate it. It's the largest, as I understand, of the Disney fleet. And what an eye-opener it was, because, when my previous, and maybe a lot of people feel this way, my thought about a Disney cruise ship was that it was sort of an amusement park on the water, and that it was probably, I don't know, meant for kids and maybe not something that adults could enjoy. But was I ever wrong?
Oh, well, it's an experience that's meant for kids, it's meant for families, and it's meant for adults. And everybody has their places on the ship, not just the Dream, which, as you mentioned, is the largest. It has a passenger capacity of 4,000. The other ships, the Magic and the Wonder, have 2,700 passenger capacities, and they are all purpose-built to provide a vacation experience for the people of all ages, really.
The thing that surprised me most when I walked on board into the lobby is how elegant it was. I mean, it took my breath away. The lobby is not what you would expect. It's all I can tell you is that it's glamorous. It harkens back to almost like you're on a movie set, to the great age of ocean-going travel, and it's fanciful at the same time, but in a very sort of rich fashion.
Well, if if that's your takeaway from it, then the Imagineers have truly reached you with what the plan is. Because yes, the whole design of that ship, from that the sweeping of the bow and everything, and with the wonder and the magic as well, is to harken back to the golden age of ocean liners in the 1930s. And you saw a lot of Art Deco treatments inside the ship, and that chandelier in the lobby is amazing.
I kept walking down to the lobby, even late at night, just to see what was going on. I hated to be asleep when I was on board because it was such a pleasant experience. And there were some celebrities running around, too, because at the christening ceremony, where, by the way, they had a helicopter, if you can believe this, swing a giant bottle of champagne into the front of the cruise ship and christen it. And that was in front of Jennifer Hudson, who was there. She's the godmother of the ship. And there was a big presentation with all the Disney characters and Jennifer Hudson. And the CEO, Bob Iger, was there, too, just to start with those two celebrities. And Whoopi Goldberg was on board, and so was John Stamos. And so you had a really big crowd of interesting people.
Well, yes, and I actually ran into Samantha Brown from Travel Channel when I was disembarking from the ship.
I saw her a few times too.
That of course that champagne bottle was actually filled with dreams.
And it hit the ship, and the dream started coming true the second people set out to sea. My dream came true immediately because everybody knows I'm a big fan of Jennifer Hudson. And on this program, in fact, every once in a while, we play a little clip of her acceptance speech from the Academy Awards because it's so inspirational. And Tony Cuthbert, can we play that little clip right now?
I have to just take this moment in. I cannot believe this. Look what God can do. Wow.
Yeah, she was so overwhelmed at winning the Academy Award, and it was so authentic and so sincere that we play that clip just to remind people that, this can be your day. Your dream can happen today.
Absolutely, and you might have noticed the thing that a lot of people don't know is that in 2003, she got her start in the Hercules show that is we don't play it any longer on the ships, but she was on the Disney Wonder in the cast of Hercules. So
well, that's a very nice tie-in, though, and you had some magnificent performers on the ship, too. I'm telling you, Amanda, you can't believe it. There's a theater, the Walt Disney Theater on board this ship, that if you walked into it, you would think that you're in New York City or the Fox Theater in downtown Detroit. I mean, a full size with a balcony and everything on board the ship, and that's only one of two theaters because there's a giant movie theater, too. And you see these off-Broadway, Broadway quality shows while you're on board. It's unbelievable. But Jennifer Hudson, I saw her. They had in the port. They had a big show, right? And then they pulled the ship to the dock, and everybody got on. So I didn't think I would see her again. I just saw her on the stage, right? So I was one of the first people to walk on board, and I was totally caught off guard because she was standing right in the lobby with her little group, of people that were sort of helping her, and I was just. I'm Mr. Invite Yourself to the Party with the book, right? And I froze.
To read your book, Michael. It's
Thank
a
you.
lot of fun.
Thank you very much. Well, I froze. I'm telling you, I lost it. I froze up, and I was face to face with her, and I couldn't speak. And she walked past and looked at me and went to her room. And I thought, I missed an opportunity to meet Jennifer Hudson. So I was kind of really disappointed in myself for not inviting myself to the party right in front of her, but she caught me by surprise. And about 20 minutes later, I happened to be up on deck. I was trying to get on that aqueduct. There's a water slide that goes around the smokestack and all the way around the top of the ship, and it's more of a coaster because
it is.
It's something else
because you have the jets that push you uphill.
It's wild. And the view, and it swings out over the ship in a glass water slide. So you're looking down, 500 feet or something?
About 150.
Seems like 10,000 when you're up there. But anyway, I was trying to get on there, and all of a sudden, there was Jennifer Hudson again. And so my wife, Dr. Christine, said, here's your chance. And so I approached her, and she was as sweet and as nice as a woman could possibly be. And I sort of, introduced myself, and I said, would you mind taking a photograph? And she said, not at all. And she touched my arm ever so lightly and stood there with me. And I said, congratulations on the Oscar. And she said, thank you very much. And then I just told her, I don't know you, but it seems like it couldn't have happened to a nicer person, and she thought that was sweet. And then we talked about the fact that she has family in Michigan, which I guess I didn't realize that. So she seemed excited about the fact that we were from Michigan and that sort of thing. And so I did get a picture. So see, if my dream was in that bottle to meet Jennifer Hudson, it came true.
That's exactly right. And, of course, her dream came true when she had the opportunity to go on to, you know, the greatness with the Grammy Award and the Academy Award and with Dreamgirls.
And she was on
her
American
dream
Idol.
Continues, and, you know, for a lot of vacationers, that ship's certainly going to be a dream come true.
Yeah, and it's available now to, I guess, very shortly to the public. And Tony, can you just give us just a couple of bars of Jennifer Hudson here for people who maybe aren't familiar with who we're talking about? You can know her in a second here from the Dreamgirls movie. So that was a lot of fun. And then I also, later in the cruise at Castaway Cay, which is an island that the ship takes you to, it's a private island that Disney owns, and it's like a water park with an ocean if you go there. I ran into the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, who was walking around checking it all out. And that, to me, was a gas, too, Dave Herbst, to have a chance to meet the CEO. I mean, how often does he pop into your office and sit down for a chat?
Well, you know, that's what you always have to be careful of when you actually are wearing the name tag, that somebody like Bob or Tom could actually walk in the door at any time. And that'll keep you on your toes a little bit.
Yeah, he was friendly, too, and asked me what I was up to, and I told him that I'm a radio and TV host and a travel writer and that kind of thing. We had a little chat, and I took a picture with him as well. And all these are posted, by the way, at MichiganTalkNetwork.com and also on our Facebook page if you want to see them. And if you're watching on television right now, you can see them on Fox 47 as the pictures and some of the video of the ship is on the screen. But he was friendly, too, and so I sent a copy of my book to his suite. It's called Invite Yourself to the Party, with a note, because in that book there's a story about how I got a chance to have a sort of communication with Michael Eisner back when I worked for J.P. McCarthy, and I thought he might get a kick out of that because there are a couple of Disney mentions in the book. But the Disney dream is like being in a movie, like being in a novel, like being in a book. You have nightclubs, you have a water coaster, you have fireworks at sea, and it's all very, very, very stylish. And so where can people go? The website, Dave?
DisneyCruise.com.
Simple
That's
as
a
that.
good place to start, and you can actually start your booking process and everything. And you also can learn an awful lot about the ship, because before the ship was a reality, I was at that site a lot and just reading about all the different aspects of it.
It's the Disney Dream, and we were lucky enough to be there on board. It's 35 after the hour. Dave Herbst spent a lot of time working in Michigan, now in sunny Florida. 20 minutes before the hour, Michael Patrick Shields heard all across the state of Michigan. Yeah, I hang around with Jennifer Hudson and Bob Iger. How's that for name dropping? That was pretty good. Yeah, it was actually, we're going to get Bob Iger on the radio program, too, coming up in the next couple of weeks, the CEO of Walt Disney World. Well, he's the whole company, the movies, the games, the toys, all of it. Bob Iger will be with us. Rick Snyder's plan to put the state's item pricing law on the shelf is being met with concern by the unions and maybe by you, too. Rick Snyder said in his State of the State address he'd like to see the law eliminated. He says it's antiquated, and it mandates that price tags be put on most every item. And apparently, he says Michigan is only one of 2 states with such a requirement. Thinks that younger, more savvy consumers prefer operating in-store scanners to learn the prices of items and whip out their smartphones to compare prices and use coupons. Do you do that? Do you go that far? To walk around in the grocery store and the department store with your smartphone, and that guy, I don't. I'm not quite there yet. But I guess the point is that if you go into a store, there are 250 boxes of macaroni and cheese. Every single one has to have a price tag on it, even if, you can look on the shelf and see on the shelf it'll say macaroni and cheese, 50 cents a box. Is that what it costs? I don't know, 75 cents a box. Every single individual box has to have a sticker on it. And so that, means it's labor. It means cost of the stickers. What if the price changes? That kind of thing, and they can't adjust it as easily. So it was Frank Kelly who originally enforced the law, and he made surprise visits to retail outlets to make sure the stores were in compliance. And even Frank Kelly now is saying maybe it's time for a change. It was 35 years ago that law came into place. I wonder what you think about that. 888-900-9966. It's 888-900-9966. What do you think about not having a price tag on every single item when you go into the store? Because it is confusing. Sometimes you pick up an item and it doesn't have a price tag, and you wonder how much is this? And sometimes they'll have sales where, the yellow dot sale or, I just can't keep track. I like to have the price tag on the thing. You know what I mean? Even if it says 50% off at markup, or at checkout, it'll say sometimes percentage taken off at checkout. I can't do the math. I'd like to know how much is it. But it's a lot, and Rick Snyder apparently thinks maybe it's time to get rid of it. Our phone number is 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Do you think that law should stay in place, or do you think, you don't need that? You can have the smartphone. You can have some other shortcuts around that sort of thing. 888-900-9966. It's 42 minutes after the hour. You've heard the word filibuster. It's a funny word. It's a fanciful word, filibuster. And there are people in politics who obviously know what it is, and the rest of us are like, filibuster? I've heard about this. And then when you hear what a filibuster is and the lengths that some people go from time to time to implement and complete a filibuster, it's absolutely astonishing. Shane Larson is with us, the legislative director for the Communication Workers of America. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Just real quickly, give us a little political primer, if you will. A filibuster is what?
A filibuster is one individual senator out of 100, his or her ability to completely grind the Senate's actions to a halt just over something they're upset about or want to raise concern about.
So they can stand up and talk and talk and talk and sort of run out the clock on the debate over a vote?
Well, it's actually not that easy. I mean, a lot of folks think of the old Jimmy Stewart movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, where Jimmy Stewart's character stands up and talks for days on end, or they think of Strom Thurmond and his opposition to the Civil Rights Act in the 60s of standing on the floor and reading from his mother's recipe book. What you've got now is there's things such as secret holds and the ability of one senator to just quietly object in the back room to their leader, and the bill comes grinding to a halt. And the abuse of these rules like this, these secret holds where one senator can put a hold on a bill and have it grind to a halt without revealing who they are, is really what's got the attention of a lot of senators of trying to stop this abuse and make the filibuster more transparent. So that if a senator really does object, the rules should be changed to say, if you're going to filibuster, you have to go down to the Senate floor and talk and talk and talk, and actually let people know what your concerns are and who you are in terms of objecting.
That seems fair. I mean, I didn't realize you could just phone it in, so to speak, is the way it sounds, huh?
Oh, that's exactly what's happening. I mean, you've gotten to the point where basically the senator will just call their leader on the Republican side, Mitch McConnell, or the Democratic side, Harry Reid, and just say, hey, listen, I've got a problem with this because of some political contributor back home. And so therefore, will you object for me? And they object on their behalf and grind everything to a halt. There
could be a vote this week to sort of reform that rule. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, there's a great group of reform-minded senators led by Tom Harkin from Iowa and Jeff Merkley from Oregon and Tom Udall from New Mexico and Senator Debbie Stabenow there in Michigan is one of those who supports this effort to bring forward a package of reforms to get rid of these secret holds, to be able to move along nominations. I mean, we have nominees for important positions that have been had these holds put on them.
Sitting on the shelf while they're waiting to go to work, it sounds like. We'll see what happens later in the week. Some of those filibusters, I remember one lasted 23 hours. Guy stood up there and talked. 14 before the hour. Thank you very much for the heads up. We'll keep our eyes on Washington. It's Michael Patrick Shields. George in Battle Creek, you're coming up next. Stay tuned. Cold as ice this morning. colder than ice, in fact. We're talking about 10 degrees, 4 degrees, and with the wind chill below zero. Later today, too, we'll get more snow and freezing rain, too. We're cold as ice. George in Battle Creek has decided to ring us at 888-900-9966. Good morning, George.
Morning, Michael Patrick.
What's cooking?
It's kind of cold. It's 3 below down here, so it's not cooking a lot. But
Yeah.
a couple of interesting points. The one you had about the wanting to stop the filibuster, it looks like those are all Democrats crying in their soup or something. I don't know why, but I called about the item pricing law.
Yeah.
I think we should keep that because us old fogies should not have to carry around a smartphone to know what the price on an item is if we're not tech savvy. And there's an easy solution to this. They can have the price on the shelf, but the problem there is the merchant doesn't always put the merchandise right above that thing.
Yep.
And when you get up the register, then you find out that they, I'm not saying they intentionally shucked and jived you, but the item you got is a different price than what you thought you were getting.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is they could have the manufacturer put the maximum price on the box, and as long as they sell it for less than that, they're legal. So if there was a box of mac and cheese for 79 cents that Kraft or somebody put 79 cents on the box, and they sold it for 39 or 49, they're legal, and it's already item price when it hits their shelf.
Yeah, that's a good point, because when you buy books, the price is printed right on the book.
Correct.
And very often they sell the book for less, but they never sell it for more.
And your book is an excellent bargain. I finished it.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you very much. I sure appreciate that. It's called Invite Yourself to the Party, and you can get it at inviteyourselftotheparty.com or amazon.com. That's very nice of you, George. I hope you'll keep in close touch.
We will. Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
And I agree with you. What if the battery dies on your smartphone and you want to buy something at the store and you're not sure about the price? That wouldn't be very good, would it? 888-900-9966. What if you can't get a signal in there on your smartphone? Some stores where the roof is steel and you can't get a signal. Well, what if you do if you don't have one? Brenda in Lansing at 888-900-9966. Good morning. Hi, Brenda.
Hi there.
What's cooking?
With the item pricing law, I think that you don't really need the prices on the packages because, like at Myers, when you go to have it scanned out by the cashier or yourself, the price in the item is put on the receipt automatically, so you can check right there. Plus, if it's the wrong price, you can go to the service desk and get 2-3 times if the value of the item, if it's the wrong price printed, or to a maximum of $5. So if that were the law, that if it was the wrong price and you could get more for the item, that you paid for, that would solve the problem. It would be the right price.
Huh. But what happens if you pick something up off the shelf, you take it to the front, it's more than you expected, then you have to take it all the way back into the store, or can you just toss it aside?
You just give it to the service people at the desk and, get your money back and everything.
So you don't mind that? You don't mind the electronic scanner and just sort of sorting it out on the fly?
No, I don't, because the receipts you get are so itemized. You can check them. It doesn't take you very long. Plus, it comes up on the computer as you're going out. You can see there.
And I guess you could cancel the item if you don't want it to. Thank you very much, Brenda. That's Brenda in Lansing saying she doesn't mind the electronic version. And so Rick Snyder in his State of the State speech talked about, maybe we don't need a price tag on every single item. Maybe just you can have the scanner and you can look on your smartphone and compare with coupons and all that sort of thing. Gary Austin is the anchor man, and he's got a couple questions for me for the answer man. Question number 1.
Yes. Here we go.
You want to know where I've been?
Yeah, where was our favorite host? That's question number 1 for
Well,
you.
I was hanging
What's
around
up?
with Academy Award-winning actress Jennifer Hudson and the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger. And all those pictures are at MichiganTalkNetwork.com or at Facebook.com. I was very lucky to invite myself to the party to meet both of them. And I got invited to the party because Disney launched their new Disney Dream ship down in Florida.
Yeah.
And there were lots of celebrities on board, and I got to be one of the very first people in history to ever ride the Disney Dream ship. Just a short little media cruise so they could show everybody what it was all about, and they had fireworks at sea. And believe me, meeting Jennifer Hudson, that was all the fireworks I needed. That was a total gas. And then the CEO of Disney is going to join us on the program in a couple of weeks because I got a chance to chat with him and tell him what I'm all about and what I do and that kind of thing. And so there you have it. I also gave him a copy of my book, Invite Yourself to the Party, because there's a story in there about a previous encounter I had with the former Disney CEO, Michael Eisner. And I think he got a kick out of that. So that's where I was for a couple of days.
Well, very good. Okay, question number 2 here. What 2 NFL teams invited themselves to the party?
The teams that are legendary in NFL, the Green Bay Packers and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Correct. Last question here. The creators of this commercial will not see it aired come Super Bowl time.
Some kind of commercial that Jesus hates Obama.
Yeah, that's not very nice. JesusHatesObama.com. Apparently this outfit wanted to have this ad run during the Super Bowl, but those at Fox said, nope, can't do it.
Jesus does not hate anybody.
That's right. You betcha.
Okay. That movie The Right is coming out this weekend. I don't know how he feels about the devil. I'm sure it's not hate. But anyway, I'm really curious to see that with Anthony Hopkins. It looks very, very spooky. Answer Man window closed. The show goes on, though. Stay with us. It's Michael Patrick Shields. Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant, if cold, Monday morning to you. It's Michael Patrick Shields. Let's see. What is it about? It's about somewhere between 4 and 10 degrees, depending where you are in the state. Of course, everybody's got a wind chill factor at 0 or below. So start your car early this morning and put your mittens on. It's going to be one of those frosty Michigan days as we're getting closer and closer to Groundhog Day, though. And maybe, just maybe, it'll be an early spring. It was a bit of an early spring as I got to go down and be part of the launch, the christening cruise of the Disney Dream. And I was talking earlier about the fact that I got to meet Jennifer Hudson and the CEO, Bob Iger from Disney. I also forgot to mention that John Stamos was on board, the Full House actor. And I was walking off the ship, and there's John Stamos, and he's got sunglasses and a cap on, and it says Chicago Police Department on the cap. So I was with my 14-year-old Harrison, and I said, look at that, there's John Stamos. And he said, Dad, I got to get my picture with him. And so I said, well, invite yourself to the party. I'll bring the camera. You go up and ask him. And he was trying to be incognito, John Stamos. He had the glasses and the hat. So little Harrison walked up and kind of stood in front of him. And John Stamos said, well, he's tall, but he's 14. And John Stamos is intimidating, right? To walk up to a celebrity like that. So he hesitated, and I sort of said, go on. And John Stamos said, what's up, buddy? And Harrison said, could I get a picture with you? And he said, yeah, come on. And so while I'm taking a picture, I start talking to him just to, keep things going a little bit so it doesn't seem so, sterile. And I said, did you join the Chicago Police Department? And he said, no, I'm wearing the hat. Are you from Chicago? And I said, no, I'm from Michigan. And John Stamos said, Michigan? You're not from Marquette, are you? And I kind of forgot, and I'm like, Marquette? What? And then I said, oh, right. I said, I would never have brought that up, but since you brought it up, scrape him off, because he's got this trouble in Marquette, right? This big scandal going on up there. So when we said we were from Michigan, he froze up for a second. It was kind of funny. And he said, nah, Marquette's a nice place. There are lots of nice people there. But isn't it, there's a woman there who she claims she has pictures of him, and he's got an injunction against her and all that sort of thing. And so anyway, it was just sort of funny. And then, as nervous as Harrison was about talking to John Stamos and Jennifer Hudson and all the rest, I looked on his Facebook page yesterday, and you know what he did? He had a picture of himself and John Stamos, and he wrote, I met John Stamos and Jennifer Hudson. What do you got? Anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. I brought you a present, Amanda Wall, that I'll pass over to you right now. If you can see on TV, I'm handing her a bag that says Walt Disney World on it because I was on that Disney Dream launch. And I thought you'd get a kick out of this. It's your own microphone.
That's the Bomb Dog?
Yeah, it's an
DAWG?
It's an American Idol microphone. See?
Oh, good.
Because
I'll
you
hold it
love
when-
that show.
I'll hold it when I watch American Idol on Wednesday. night,
You
John
put it
Fox.
right in front of you here. 'Cause you've got a real microphone, but that one I thought is a little cooler. 'Cause
Thank you very
you do
much.
love American Idol,
I
don't you?
do love American Idol. This season, I'm very interested with the new judges, Jennifer Lopez and Steven Tyler.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a new dynamic, and they sent double the number of people through to Hollywood this year. So there's a lot of singers that.
But Dog is still there, right? What's his name? Randy?
Randy, yeah.
He's still on there, isn't he?
He is. He's the third base judge, as you would call him.
So I've handed her, it's a plastic microphone, says American Idol on the side, and what does the plate on the bottom say?
That's the bomb dog.
That's the bomb, Dog.
Oh, I'm
'Cause
sorry,
that's-
did I not say it right?
Because she's the producer, and so this microphone will go in front of her. It's like an old-time Johnny Carson microphone.
I feel like I won like a Golden
did.
Globe.
Yeah, it's
just
like an
now,
award.
Just like Jennifer Hudson.
Because you're the bomb, Dog.
I'm the bomb. Nice.
And she still likes that show. Somebody does anyway. Well, I mean, it's starting to slip. That's why they're putting
It
new
is. That's why
judges,
they put
right?
New judges on, yeah.
Well, we'll see how they do. I don't know if you know this or not, but Jennifer Hudson was on American Idol.
She was?
Yeah, just in passing, it just came up.
Did you meet her this weekend?
Yeah, I did. In fact, I met Jennifer Hudson this weekend down at Disney.
You bumped into her a couple times.
She's an Academy Award winner.
She
Did you know
stay on
that?
the same floor as you? Cabin next door?
No, it was not an adjoining cabin situation, but it was very nice, and she touched me very nicely on the arm when we took our picture together, and she talked about the fact that she's got family in Michigan. Very sweet. See, if you're watching TV right now, there's a picture of the two of us just chatting, a candid shot there.
I'm counting.
Isn't that nice? What?
25.
How many times I mentioned Jennifer Hudson?
25.
She's
so
beating
far.
she's beating Bob Iger in the name dropping contest. But they're both pretty cool. Another pretty cool guy that we haven't seen for a while, Jonathan Raven with Frazier to Bilcock Davis and Dunlap PC, is the attorney sitting right here in the third base position in our Gillespie Group storefront studio. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael Patrick. Thank you for inviting me to the cold party.
Yeah, thanks for being here. You spotted a story that, it seems like every time we talk about this topic, everybody turns up their radio because it involves almost everyone, and it has to do with emails that you send at work, emails that you send at home. What do they mean in the court of law? Is texting the same as talking? This whole world of if I say something to you right now, does it have the same value as if I wrote it in a letter, or I sent it in an email, or I sent it in a text, or, whatever? I mean, what's the latest development in all this email situation?
Well, the latest development came out of the state of California with its Court of Appeals. People are used to having their communications with their lawyers protected by an attorney-client privilege.
I've seen that, and on the bottom sometimes when you get an email or a fax, it says this is confidential information that is only intended for that sort of thing, right?
That sort of thing, but this goes back, all of Anglo-Saxon law, I think. Your communications with your lawyer are almost sacred and very hard to be forced to disclose them. But Court of Appeals in California, state court, not a federal ruling, just came out with an interesting ruling that says that if you, as an employee, use your employer's email or computer to communicate with your personal attorney about a potential claim you have against your employer, you lose your privilege. Where
No kidding.
the employer has a policy that you've read, you've signed, that says that you cannot use the company computer for personal use, or that if you do, that the employer can monitor your work computer and your email, including your personal web-based email, if it's used on the company computer. And so the Court of Appeals in that case said that the employer has a right to look at those conversations, even if they're to your personal attorney.
So if you have a email that's not the company email, for instance, let's say it's FrazierLaw.com, JRaven, whatever, at FrazierLaw.com. Even if you go on your computer at work and sign on to your Gmail account, let's say, and do it that way, it's still, according to this court ruling, readable and usable by your boss.
This was in California, so this ruling does not apply to Michigan, but it's a rapidly evolving area.
Sure. It will eventually, right?
It
Something
could come here, and it makes some sense because this was a case where the employer actually had a policy, and employer policies are often litigated. So it's important for employers to look at their policies all the time, especially where technology is developing so quickly, and the law kind of has to catch up or old principles have to be reinterpreted in light of new technology. So where the employer makes it pretty clear, and the emphasis is on clear, what its policy is,
That'll hold up?
it can hold up. There have been some other recent opinions in other states and also a U.S. Supreme Court opinion in the last few months that touch on this, and it's beginning to look as if the right to privacy can be limited if you're at work, which makes sense because, as the California court said, that using the employer's email to do personal business is kind of like consulting with your lawyer in your employer's conference room with the door open in a loud voice so that any reasonable person would expect that they might be overheard.
Well, let me ask you that then. Does this apply to the telephone, too, if you call your lawyer on the telephone?
It can apply to any method
Any
of
communication.
again, in California, and subject to a policy alerting the employees in advance that it can be monitored.
Fax, if a fax comes from your attorney
Yes.
to your office, it's on
Yes.
their paper and their machine.
No reasonable expectation of privacy. So that would be a problem for the employee, and again, with a properly written policy, the employee could lose that protection. But there was also a case recently in New Jersey where the employee used a company computer to use a personal email account, and the state Supreme Court in New Jersey said no, the policy that the employer had in that case was not clear. It was ambiguous, and therefore they construed that policy against the employer and said that they could not monitor that in that situation.
So you're really speaking to two different groups of people right now. One, you're speaking to employees so that they should know what the company policy is when they're sending emails or using the fax or the telephone in the office. And the second is you're speaking to employers who maybe have a very loose set of rules for people who come to work there, that they should tidy that up, update it, include all the modern technology so that there's no question when this sort of thing happens.
That's true. And the U.S. Supreme Court has actually weighed in on that and said that even if you have a text message on a company-owned text machine, you can have that can be reviewed by an employer. And, of course, we saw what happened in Detroit with the mayor, the former mayor.
Good warning for both sides, employees and employers, and you're both welcome to contact Jonathan Raven at Frazier, Trebilcock, Davis, and Dunlap, the law firm in Lansing and all across the state, in fact. Thank you very much for being here. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Happy New Year, and stay warm when you hit the road. It's 18 after the hour. We'll heat things up with Charles Ballard, the MSU economics professor, his new book about the way forward for Michigan. Stay tuned for that. It's Michael Patrick Shields. Very funny. Amanda Wall playing the Full House theme for us here with Tony Cuthbert.
All Tony.
That was John Stamos'. Oh, I recognize it now. There it is.
Jesse on Full House.
Well, he's grown up a little bit now, John Stamos, anyway, and got himself in a little bit of hot water in Marquette, Michigan, and was able to joke about it, at least to me. So he
When
can't
you
be
met
taken
him on
too
the ship this weekend?
Yeah, did I
With
mention
Jennifer Hudson?
that I met Jennifer Hudson? Did I mention that this weekend on the Disney Dream? And Bob Iger, did I mention that too? Disney CEO. If I didn't, I'll tell you about it a little bit later. Now, speaking of movies and celebrities and all the rest, Governor Snyder says that luring film companies to Michigan doesn't make good business sense. He wants to take a long, hard look at the tax credit that offers an incentive of 42% for films made here in the state, and that's why you would have seen in Michigan the likes of George Clooney and Richard Gere and 50 Cent and all the rest, and more movies are being made. But here's what Governor Snyder says about whether or not maybe there needs to be some sort of an adjustment or maybe even an elimination. Who knows?
Well, that's something I want to sit down with people in the film industry and have a discussion, the Michigan piece of the film industry, because some people have made some significant investments, and we just don't want to cut people off that in good faith made investments on programs that existed.
Charles Ballard is with us here in our Gillespie Group storefront studio. You know him as the MSU economics wizard and the author now of Michigan's Economic Future, A New Look. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Do you think that the film tax credit makes sense?
I'm in agreement with an awful lot of economists and also with the governor that this kind of tax system that we have, where we have high taxes on some businesses to finance very large credits for others, is probably not a good idea. I like the idea of having George Clooney and Clint Eastwood come, but look, we are paying so much to these companies. You know, if you offer 42% of to cover 42% of their operating costs, that's a generous enough subsidy that we could have a thriving citrus fruit industry in Michigan. You know, you could pay enough to them that they could burn enough natural gas to keep gigantic greenhouses warm all winter long, and then you'd say, hey, look at all the grapefruit jobs that we brought. But I hope that you can see that that's not a very efficient use of our resources. Most economists, myself included, think that if you're going to have a tax on business income, it should be as uniform as possible. Keep it at low and uniform instead of high on some and low or subsidies to others.
But isn't it true that with the manufacturing industry evaporating in Michigan, if it's fair to say that if we're looking for new forms of business, we're going to have to do something to get them here, aren't we?
Oh, yeah. We're going to have an economic development strategy, but I think that a low and uniform and predictable business tax would be a better strategy rather than trying to pick winners and say, even though, you know, I don't have anything against Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
In fact, Gran Torino was a great movie, but that's not the best way to bring the economy of the future. After all, trying to pick winners and say, okay, it's film, we don't really know what the next big thing is for Michigan. It might be something else. And I think it would be better to prepare our workforce. That's why in my book I put a lot of emphasis on the skills of the workforce, because no matter what the tax system is, if your business can't find the skilled workers to do what you need, you don't have a viable plan.
Well, that's one of the problems that the film business is running into, I think, is that we have a lot of people here who made car commercials. And we had a lot of facilities where car commercials were made, and a lot of those were dormant until the film people came in. And I'm just wondering how much PR value is there in having the movie business as opposed to the grapefruit business?
Well, you know, if you were to subsidize something, movies is probably better than some of the things that you might subsidize.
Just from a wow factor.
Just from the wow factor, and I think that's why it's politically attractive. But from an economic perspective, rather than having this very uneven tax system, it would be better to have a level playing field. I make the same argument about the sales tax. You know, we have a sales tax where you pay 6% if you buy something at a hardware store, but you pay nothing for various services and entertainments. Mm-hmm. Better to have a lower rate and a uniform tax system on all sales rather than high on something and zero on other things.
That's not likely to happen, though, is it?
It's more likely to happen than a lot of other possible tax reforms, because when you get business leaders from Michigan and the Michigan League for Human Services both on the same page, which they aren't always, I think there's a growing realization that the sales tax on services is a good policy move. I know there will be political opposition. Any change in tax policy has opposition. But in terms of economic efficiency, in terms of fairness, and in terms of maintaining the integrity of our tax system for the future, having a broad sales tax is really a slam dunk. And so I'm going to continue to push for it, even though I know that there will be opposition.
How low could the sales tax be if you included services?
Well, it depends upon which services you include. But
it would be all of them, right, is what you're saying?
If you include all retail services,
haircuts,
you could haircuts, attorney's fees, tickets to, I like to say, since everybody says, hey, yeah, sure, let's have tax reform, just don't tax my thing. I like to say, look, tax the Spartan football tickets. I'm still going to go to the games. Tax the tickets to the Wharton Center. I'm still going to go to the concerts, etc.
I can see the argument, because if you buy a book, that's a form of entertainment, right?
Yeah.
But you pay tax on buying a book.
Right.
If you go to a movie...
Right.
You don't.
You don't, yeah.
So
having this kind of discriminatory tax system is, in my view, not only unfair, but also, and I won't give you the economics lecture, but it's economically inefficient. So I'm all for having a uniform, and if you wanted to raise the same amount of revenue you could, if you extended that sales tax, you could probably reduce the rate by more than 1 percentage point, down into the 4s, maybe even below that, depending upon the exact details. I'm in favor of perhaps reducing the rate a little bit, but expanding it such that we can gain more revenue, because our revenues are down so precipitously in the last 10 years, and now we're facing another $1.8 billion deficit. I hope we don't close that deficit entirely with spending cuts, because the general fund budget has already been cut by more than 40%.
Oh, well, there would be people that would say that would bring the economy to a standstill because people would try to shop less or do less. I don't know about that argument. I'm not sure about that.
Well,
how could you?
Any tax is going to have pluses and minuses. The pluses, well, first the minuses. The minuses are that taxes do by themselves have negative incentive effects. But the pluses is that you get to pave your roads, and you get to have the schools stay open, and you get to have parks, and all the rest of the public services. You know, nobody likes to pay taxes, but if I have an emergency, I want to be able to dial 911 and have somebody show up. I want somebody to plow my roads when there's snow. I think that letting our roads turn to gravel, which is about what's happening in some places in Michigan, is not a good economic development strategy. So what's best is not to lower taxes all the way to zero, but to find the right balance between the very real costs of taxes but the very real benefits of the services that are provided.
And the real argument then is over how all that money is spent. Really, that's where the argument ought to be.
That is what it really boils down to. A lot of times when you hear people arguing about tax policy, if you scratch the surface just a little bit, what you discover is that it's really an argument about what we spend our money on.
It's like, to me, if this oversimplifies it, but if you live in one of those neighborhoods where they have the neighborhood community and everybody goes to the meeting and you have to pay your maintenance fee for the year, that's like one big America. If you want to live here and have the services, you pay the maintenance fee. But the argument comes in what they're spending the money on.
Yeah, and an awful lot of that is an awful lot of people want to spend money on something that I want, but not what's good for that other person. And much of it really boils down to a difference of opinion about how big a gap there should be between the rich and poor.
The book is called Michigan's Economic Future, A New Look. Is it good for the average person? I mean, can we understand the book?
Well, I certainly did my very best to write this. This is not highly technical, not a lot of economic mumbo-jumbo. It's written for the average person. I've done my best to make it readable and accessible. Published by the MSU Press. And msupress.msu.edu. You can get a copy, and it's only $20, so it's not that, it won't bust too much of a hole in your budget. So I certainly urge people to buy.
We'll continue with Charles Ballard, the MSU economics professor. As soon as we get back, it's Michael Patrick Shields. Our meeting on this icy morning is with Charles Ballard, the MSU economics professor. That's really putting it mildly. He's got a wealth of career knowledge in the economics department, and his book now is called Michigan's Economic Future, A New Look, and it is available mainly...
well, it's at some bookstores.
Is it?
And you can go online to msupress.msu.edu. Phone number is 517-355-9543.
And we'll put that web address on the podcast of this interview at michigantalknetwork.com so that you can connect right through MSU. And I suppose if you Google it up, you'll see some of the stores where the book is available, too.
I think so.
Very good. So it's Michigan's Economic Future, A New Look. Chad is ringing in from Howell at 888-900-9966. Good morning, Chad.
Hey, good morning.
Question for Professor Ballard?
Yeah, I've got one take on the tax credits for the film industry. And I'm a small business owner, and we've actually got a $300 job out of the movie being here, so we've seen some of the small advantages, I guess, but I've always thought it was a fairly bad credit for our state due to the fact that all the big movies that come out of here put us in a terrible light.
I think that's a good point. But some of them make us look better than others but certainly, Detroit 187. I think only reinforces the image that many people have that that's the way that the entire state of Michigan is. I was talking to a guy who said he had talked to some people from California who were at the Grand Traverse Resort, and they said, we had no idea you had anything like this in Michigan. We thought it was just abandoned factories and warehouses from one end of the state to the other. The rest of the country has a very bad impression of Michigan. The reality of Michigan, I mean, we've had a tough decade, no question about it, but the perception is much worse than the reality, and I don't want to do anything that we to really reinforce a negative impression.
Yeah, you know, Chad, what was the job that you got from the movie business?
Well, the movie set that was in Howell, they rented a house and they caught it on fire.
Oh. So what did
So we
you
had
do?
a siding repair.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, that's something, right? Thank you very much, Chad. We appreciate it very much, Chad and Howell there. You know, speaking of the image of Michigan, well, the other thing is the movies don't always say we're in Michigan. They're not set in Michigan necessarily. They're shot in Michigan. So they might use a beach for Pirates of the Caribbean. It's not always going to be Detroit 187.
Oh, that's right.
So you might not even know when you're watching.
You wouldn't necessarily know, although in the credits at the end of a movie, they'll say where it's filmed. And I know Gran Torino, which was, I thought it was a very good film. There was a lot of credit at the end to the fact that this was, filmed in Michigan. And so, that's fine. But as I say, in terms of efficiently moving forward and trying to build an economy for the future, I think almost all economists would agree with me that it would be better to have a level playing field than to have subsidies for some businesses and higher taxes for others.
Speaking of the image of Michigan, Newsweek magazine has a list of dying cities in America. I don't know if you saw this yet, but we have 3 Michigan cities on the list. Detroit, Flint, and they list Grand Rapids, too, and in the 10th position. That surprises me a little bit, Grand Rapids.
Well, the west side of the state has done better than much of the rest of the state, and Kent County, which includes Grand Rapids, has grown in population. But the city of Grand Rapids faces some of the same stresses that cities all over the country, and especially in the upper Midwest, face. It's not as bad in some ways as Detroit. I mean, Detroit is sort of the poster child, and Flint, for just really severe problems. But Grand Rapids has a lot of low-income folks, a lot of unemployment. They have some real problems, and so I think it's maybe good that Grand Rapids is on the list if it brings attention to the fact that just because you're in West Michigan, that doesn't mean that everything's great. Parts of West Michigan are doing fine, but other parts not so well.
But they don't have the image problem that Detroit does.
That's right, and so that's an advantage, I think, for Grand Rapids.
And Flint, I think, with the most murders in the city's history last year.
It's been a very tough time for Flint. Flint, like Detroit, is only half as big in population as it once was. So there's a lot of empty areas. There's a lot of abandoned buildings, and that causes lots of problems. Flint area auto employment used to be more than 10 times what it is now.
What do you make, this is a long question, but I'll give it quickly because we only have a minute left, of Mayor Bing's idea to create green space in Detroit by just tearing down houses? Some people say that's giving up.
No, I don't think it's giving up. I actually like that idea because you've got to concentrate. I mean, the whole idea of urban areas is that you have people together. And there are a lot of blocks in Detroit. I went down and visited not long ago. The area where my mom grew up near 7 Mile and Livernois is still hanging on pretty well. But there are places in Detroit where there are blocks where there's only 1 or 2 occupied structures.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to deliver fire protection, police protection, sewer if you've got such a spread out. So I think the idea of concentrating people and then having a green belt, I like that idea.
It's something. Anyway, 14 minutes before the hour. He's Charles Ballard, MSU economics professor. The book is called Michigan's Economic Future, A New Look. And the web address one more time?
msupress.msu.edu.
Or just Google it up and you'll find it right there. And it'll be on our website, too, at MichiganTalkNetwork.com. Thank you for the time. It's very valuable, I know.
Thank you. My pleasure.
14 before the hour. The NFL playoffs are concluded. The Super Bowl preview when we get back. The National Football League is going to get a final, a Super Bowl number 45 with two of the traditional, legendary teams. That's because the Green Bay Packers beat Chicago yesterday 21-14, and Jennifer Hudson was probably very sad about that because she's from Chicago. She was probably rooting for the Bears. Did I mention that I met Jennifer Hudson?
30. You hit 30.
30 times I've mentioned
30.
it this morning.
It's not even 7 o'clock yet.
She touched
8
my
o'clock
arm.
yet.
She touched me. Should have seen her gentle touch as we stood there with the wind blowing in our hair from the ocean.
Because I haven't heard the story yet.
You haven't
this
heard?
Morning. No.
Well, she was there for the launch of the Disney Dream Cruise, and she was on this little stage for this assembled group of VIPs, and she did a little song and a little talk, and I figured that was it. But then when I got on the ship,
You're so excited right now. You're like leaning forward in your chair.
well,
and
I
you're
was
getting
one of the
really-
first people on board the Disney Dream Ship, and there she was, like standing in the lobby with a small group of her people around her, right? And I was so caught off guard, Mr. Invite Yourself to the Party, that I choked.
Was there like the
I have to admit
halo
it.
and the light behind her? and
Yeah,
then,
it was
the
like
slow- the wind blew
it
her
started
hair
to,
in
I
slow
I
motion.
couldn't speak almost. I was like breathless, and I blew it. She looked right at me. She was as far as you are from me at the elevator, and I blew it. And she went down the hallway to her room. It was not unpleasant, but there was no connection, just eye contact for a second. And I was like, hey, she went. So I was really disappointed, and I said, why, what happened to me there? Why, I'm Mr. Invite Yourself to the Party. So about a half an hour later, I was up on deck, and there she was. And there was no one else around, just her and a couple of her people.
No one else.
Yeah, it was just us.
It was just you and her and up on the upper deck of the Dream Cruise.
With the wind blowing her hair back. It was like Titanic. We stood on the
Right,
front.
on the front of the boat.
I'm the king of the world. No, it wasn't like that. She had a couple of people with her, and Christine was with me. And so Christine says, there's your chance. So this time I didn't blow my chance. I went up and introduced myself and politely, and I, would you mind a picture? And we talked a little bit, and she talked about, we talked about the Academy Award. And we talked about how she has family in Michigan, she said, and
Who is
so it's
she?
nice. Jennifer Hudson, the
okay.
Academy Award-winning singer and actress. And, and people that may not know this, but at the beginning of our show sometimes we play a little clip from Jennifer Hudson when she won the Academy Award, which has always touched me because she seems so genuinely surprised and so overwhelmed by it all. Here's what she said.
I have to just take this moment in. I cannot believe this. Look what God can do. Wow.
Yeah, that's what she said after I met her, too. When I took the picture,
God
she
can
turned
do.
around and she was like fanning some air onto her face. And then I heard her as she was walking away say,
I have to just take this moment in. I cannot believe this. Look what God can do.
I said,
Wow.
don't worry about it, baby. It'll be fine.
And as she walked away, you ran right into the. Who else did you run into on the boat?
Oh, I didn't mention, I ran into the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger. But I didn't meet him on the boat. I met him on the beach. And he's the big boss of the whole thing. And so I got my picture with him, and we talked a little bit, too. He asked what I do and that kind of thing. So he'll join us on the program.
Did
the
he
CEO
turn around
of
and
Disney.
say, like, look what God can do?
No, he was a little more macho about it.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Held it in a little
He held it in. But I sent my book to his suite with a note. Because in my book, Invite Yourself to the Party, there's a story about myself and Michael Eisner, the former Disney CEO. So I said, you probably enjoyed the story on page 88, and I sent it to his suite. So Bob Iger and I are new best friends,
Oh.
the CEO of Disney.
So you have a new girlfriend and a new best friend.
Well, I always was, fond of Jennifer Hudson.
Right.
But I just was, too busy to see her until this time I happened to be on board the ship. So that's how
I'm
it
glad
worked.
your calendars worked out.
Yeah, I think so too. Anyway, so that's what happened, and Bob Iger will join us on the air in the coming weeks as well, because he promised me he would. So stay tuned for that. Ken Dallafor, the Super Bowl, his team, he was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going back to the Super Bowl. Ken, do you feel excited about the fact that your old team's going back to the big game?
Oh, it's exciting for Steeler Nation. Are you kidding? That's quite a franchise, storied, and people there are just thrilled.
There are some ties to Michigan. The Steelers have some players from here. Obviously, Charles Woodson is on the Green Bay Packers. And the fact that the Lions beat the Packers is a little source of pride, isn't it, that we beat the team that's in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, that and $1 will get you a cup of coffee. But, yeah, it's I guess it's a source of pride.
Why not? Now, this is, it's amazing how many times the Steelers, in fact, they won the Super Bowl in Detroit a few years ago, and didn't they also beat the Card? I mean, they're just piling up championships.
Yeah, they used to have the theme, one for the thumb. They've surpassed that, and their record, I think, when they reached the Super Bowl, I think they've only had one loss there.
Yeah, that's pretty darn good. They've got more than the thumb now. They're working on the second hand. And so that happened. That didn't surprise a lot of people. Now, your picks, remind me, were which teams?
I had the Packers and the Steelers, and out of the 10 playoff games, was 8 and 10.
Awesome.
So that was pretty good percentage. But it was a lot of fun to watch the games yesterday, and then the big story around Coulter, the quarterback for the Bears, and was he hurt, wasn't he? And there's a lot of drama around that whole thing too.
Yeah.
So.
I knew Cutler would fold. I knew sooner or later Cutler would fold. Congratulations, Ken Delafour from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Television viewers, we're going to say goodbye right now. Radio listeners, stay where you are for another hour of this. It's Michael Patrick Shields.
'Cause now it's time to go. But hey, I say, well, that's okay. 'Cause we'll see.